Yo, what is good, everybody? It's your boy Golden Falls, Golden What If, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back. I'm back with a brand new What If. What if Naofumi was the legendary martial arts hero? I know it doesn't say legendary in the thumbnail, but yeah, it's gonna say it in the title. I couldn't fit legendary in it without it making it look really weird, so it just says what if Naofumi was the martial arts hero. Same thing. But yeah. This will be a part 1. I don't know how many parts this will be. I don't know how long this video is going to end up being, but it's a part 1. It's going to be part 1 of either 2 or 3, depending on how long it goes. But yeah, that's about it. I want to give a shout out to my boy Saint. Make sure to check all the links in the description. And also, I've had some ideas for this series for a little bit, so I hope y'all enjoy it. And if you do, make sure to leave a like, sub, and comment down below any suggestions. And yeah, that's about it. And let's just get right into the what if. Let's get it. And here he comes out to the ring. Naofumi Iwatani, the martial artist out of Japan. He is a lethal striker, folks. A lethal one. And he is going up against the champ of the welterweight division, Kamaru, the Nigerian Nightmare, Usman. Naofumi Iwatani has come from Japan to the States to fight. Finally, he climbed up the ranks and now he's here for his title shot. This martial artist has a background in wrestling, but mostly a background in jiu-jitsu, karate, and various other styles. Folks, this will be a fight for the ages. Let's see what they got and let's give it off to the announcer. This fight is scheduled for 5 rounds in the welterweight division for the UFC's welterweight championship of the world. Introducing first, fighting out of the blue corner, a mixed martial artist weighing in at a 170-pound limit and standing 5'9". Naofumi Iwatani. The crowd goes wild. Everybody has been waiting for this one man to step up to the plate. The fact that he has this miraculous idea of how to beat the Nigerian Nightmare Kamaru Usman. Will he be able to do it? All the crowd is waiting in anticipation as the announcer continues on. He points at the champion and begins to say that it's fighting out of the red corner, Kamaru Usman, the Nigerian Nightmare, a wrestler out of Nigeria. Kamaru Usman is an unstoppable force, but Naofumi seems to be the only person that can really stand up to this monster, to the freak of nature that is Usman. They go to the middle of the ring and the ref begins to tell them the rules, saying if they want to touch gloves, touch them now. They touch gloves and back up to their corner, ready for a scrap, ready for the fight of his life. Naofumi Iwatani stands there in wait for that bell to ring and for the referee to tell them that they're all set to go. Are you ready? Are you ready? Get it on! They both step to the middle of the ring, but as he does, he sees something glowing behind his opponent. He sees, is that a phone? A picture? What is that? As he sees it, as they throw their first punch, he teleports away. Naofumi is gone. Now in a medieval setting, seemingly a medieval-like prison. But he looks to his left to see 3 other people with weapons on them. A spear, a bow, a sword. He's confused to see this, but it looks like they were sent here as well. He looks at his hands, but there's nothing there. There's 2 gems though in both of his fists, but they quickly disappear and go right to his chest. It seems like a gem is in his chest, just like the weapons these other people are holding, and he's physically and mentally destroyed by this. He's confused. What is going on? Why is there a gem in my chest? What is happening? That's until these noblemen, these royal guards for the king, approach and say that they are the cardinal heroes, the ones that were summoned, the spear, the sword, the bow, and the shield? They're confused. This man, he has no weapon. He has nothing on him. He knows of the gem in his chest, but they don't. They only see him and he has no weapon. They're confused to say, and they begin to say that maybe he didn't come with a weapon. They explain that he's supposed to be the shield hero, the legendary shield hero, but he doesn't have a weapon. They're confused to see this and say that they need to speak with the king immediately, and the other three heroes argue, saying that he better offer them real, well, obviously rewards if they want the help of these heroes, unless they want to have a problem. Obviously, this will be quickly sorted out, and they approach the king. The king begins speaking and begins talking about what they need to be doing. The waves of catastrophe are upon them. This demonic invasion will be a problem. And Naofumi is confused by this demonic invasion. Last he remembered, he was fighting for the UFC's welterweight championship. What is this? He's baffled by this, and the king then looks at Naofumi, saying that it seems like he was sent here with nothing, with no weapon. He might not be a hero, and he apologizes for wasting his time and asks if he was born here, or maybe it was an accidental summon that something happened. And Naofumi says that he was definitely not born here, and he was in the midst of fighting somebody before this. And they ask him, what does he mean by fighting? He explains that if this isn't his world, well, in his world, it was as if he could fight these people in an octagon. It was for money, for sport. And they ask if it's like gladiator arenas, and he says you could think of it like that, but it's more of a formal state. He says that he knows various martial arts, ranging from jiu-jitsu to karate and various other things, and they're shocked to hear this, thinking that someone would be this skilled but not have a weapon. The rest of them scoff at this, the other three heroes, saying that if he doesn't have a weapon, he might not be useful anyways. And he says that that's just not true, that he could disarm all of them in an instant if he so choose to do so. And they think that he's bluffing, but even Naofumi knows he's not. But with all that said and done, they don't know really what to do with Naofumi. They say that he is technically one of the heroes they summoned, but the chances of him being taken seriously are practically zero. He doesn't have a weapon, and Naofumi says that's fine. He does things on his own anyways. He usually has coaches, but other than that, it's all on his own. The king says that he'll spread the word to the rest of the people to see if maybe anybody will join his party, but eventually that doesn't happen. But the difference is in this: he speaks with the other three heroes about the video game aspect of this world, and he learns that it's very similar to a video game he plays in his other world. It seems very similar actually, and he's played the game on multiple occasions, so luckily he has some general aspects of this world. He doesn't know everything, just like them, they don't know everything either, but he does know a good amount. But even with that said, nobody's gonna want to join a hero with no weapon. Why would they? There's no protection in that. But when they arrive in the castle and they begin to divvy off the people, again, nobody joins his party. Nobody at all. Naofumi is forced to go on his own to try and train, immediately heading out to this giant field, seeing these small monsters, and when they fly at him, he punches them, and immediately they're destroyed. Actually, they're poofed into ashes, it seems, and he collects them and puts them in his gem, which is in his chest, which he says is kind of odd because it's like he's storing these fragments of these beings in his chest cavity, which is kind of weird, but that's beyond the point. Naofumi does have some success destroying these monsters, and frankly has a decent amount of ease in terms of killing the other monsters. It actually seems that when he is doing hand-to-hand combat and not having an actual weapon in his hands, his stats are they're boosted. He looks at his stat sheet to find that there is a ton of boosted stats. It's actually a 2x boost when he doesn't have any weapons in his hands. He even tries it. He goes to a local blacksmith and talks to the man and asks if he can just pick up a weapon to see what would happen. He does so, and instead of it shocking him, rejecting it, it actually just minuses his stats. Instead of a 2x multiplier, it's a multiplier of 0.5. making him a lot weaker. He asks the man what his name is, and he explains that his name is Erhard, and he introduces himself, says that he's supposedly one of the heroes, and Erhard says he seems to be one of the heroes that doesn't have a weapon. And he says, yeah, he's the only hero that doesn't have a weapon, unfortunately, but his fists are his weapon. His entire body is. In his other world, that's what it was. He was a weapon. And he's confused to hear this, but even Naofumi explains quickly about that he's a martial artist and that he fights with his hands, his feet, his legs. Anything he can use is his weapon. His whole body is a weapon. And Erhard is shocked to hear this and actually suggests something, saying that maybe he can get behind some brass knuckles or maybe even something to put on his feet or his legs to kick harder and stronger and stuff like that. Unluckily, Erhard doesn't have any of that in stock, but he can order it right now and it would come in a couple days. Naofumi asks how much, and Erhard says that since he's, well, a weaponless hero, he'll give him a discount, and since he is a hero, he'll give him a discount. So he pays about 200 silvers out of all the silver he got, which was closer to 1500 because of the fact that he has no party members. He pays it to him and then even pays Erhard some extra. Erhard says that he doesn't need to do that, but Naofumi says that he wants a loyal person, and hopefully that will get him just that, and maybe in the future Erhard can help him out and then they can help each other out. Erhard says that he likes the way the guy thinks, and Naofumi decides to head off, continuing his leveling up. For the next day or so, he continues this, but unfortunately, he begins to kind of plateau. The fact that he doesn't have any help, he doesn't have anybody to really assist him in this, makes everything a lot slower. Yes, he's getting a good amount of XP by defeating monsters, and he can defeat them himself, seeing that his fists, his kicks, and all of it is pretty powerful, but he does need someone's help. And it seems like nobody wants to help him. It just feels that way. This then leads to a group of bandits offering their assistance, they can say, for Naofumi, saying that they could be that helpful person. They know he can't use weapons, or that he doesn't even have a weapon. What a poor hero that can't use a weapon. But as quick as this offer is, Naofumi realizes the faultiness in it, that they just want him to, well, fork over some cash. And Naofumi states this and says that if they want to mug him, they might as well just get along with it right now. There's no reason to stall. The bandits smile and then attack Naofumi, but quickly Naofumi is able to absolutely destroy them, immediately sweeping one's leg, kicking one in the shin, and then kicking one in the head. They're all down for the count, one knocked out, the other hurting in their leg so bad that they can't stand, and the other one terrified, sitting on the ground, not wanting to even stand back up, afraid that Naofumi will beat him senseless. Naofumi steps on his chest and says that he's not the person to be played with, especially when he's at such a disadvantage. Naofumi grabs his arm and says that he could break it right now. It would be so swift and easy, but he won't. He'll be nice about it. He kicks him in the face and then also kicks the other in the face, knocking all three of them out and dragging them to the guards. He throws them at them and says that they tried to mug him, and they immediately put them in prison. They don't necessarily disrespect Naofumi. They don't hate him, but they also don't necessarily like him by any means. He is a hero that doesn't even have a weapon. So how are they supposed to take this? How are they supposed to think that Naofumi is awesome or cool or anything or any of the above when they feel that he probably won't even be able to survive this next wave? The first wave that's going to happen for them, he's probably going to die. With all that said though, Naofumi still realizes that he needs help. He needs someone else. He begins to walk underneath this small like bridge, and someone approaches him. Someone very creepy. A short guy approaches him and spews off that he can give him somebody that to help him out, you could say. He asks how is that, and he asks for Naofumi just to follow him. Naofumi does just that, finding this giant slave market. Tons of slaves, from this giant monster dog to these small creatures and these other demi-humans. He explains that, well, he can give some help via a slave, something that can't disobey and something that would forcibly work for him. Naofumi is disgusted by the idea, but even realizes himself that he needs help, but he doesn't want it this way. He's about to reject the offer until he sees a little girl suffering. In this filth of a place, he's mad now. He wants to get her out of here, so that's what he decides. He says that he'll just take the little girl over there and he'll give him 5 silvers. He says 15, but they meet in the middle at 10. Naofumi gives him 10 and they put a slave crest on Raphtalia, or at least that's what he finds out her name is, and takes her away. He apologizes, saying that the slave crest was just a formality and that he doesn't want her to be hurt anymore and he'll help her out as much as he possibly can. They get her food and fed and then eventually get her medicine, and now Raphtalia is up and healthy immediately. And Naofumi begins to explain to her this though, that he does need help. He needs help with the waves, that these people may not recognize him as a hero, but he still wants to do everything in his power to protect them, anything he can do. Raphtalia hears this and is shocked, but immediately she's fallen for Naofumi. The idea that someone like this could exist is beyond Raphtalia, but she's so excited. She explains that she's gone through so much and that she wants to help people too, and if this mister can help him or help everybody and help her, that she'll be along his side as long as she can stand. And Naofumi smiles and tells her to call him Naofumi, and she explains that her name is Raphtalia. They get a sword in her hand and they commence their training. Obviously, there is a big hurdle to go over with Raphtalia. She fears anything in terms of killing and blood, but luckily they're able to get over that, and very quickly in fact, through stories that Naofumi has of him scratching and clawing his way through martial arts, and the fact that blood is the natural process of life, and death is as well. When death occurs, they're in a better place, in a nicer place, way nicer than the world they live in currently. And Naofumi gets her to get in this mindset. But with all that said, they need to head out to a new place, get new stuff. He gets Raphtalia new armor, a new sword luckily, and eventually gets word of a place called Loot Village via Erhard. So they head over and they even begin trying to trade stuff and talk to them, eventually learning of this cave that has tons of monsters that they could train on, but also amazing ores that they can sell for a nice price. So Naofumi and Raphtalia have their next goal, to head over to that cave, to head over to make some money and gain some experience. They arrive at the mine, but they don't actually see any monsters initially, so Naofumi decides to just start mining for this ore. He continues mining more and more and more until they hear a roar of this monster. It seems like one of the monsters have finally come out. He turns to see that it's a pretty high level monster, maybe even a higher level than him, but it shouldn't be necessarily a problem. He looks to Raphtalia though, and she's freaking out. She's practically on her backside now, scared, terrified of this monster, and she begins to cry, saying that that's the same monster that killed her parents. And she's freaking out, and she's in complete shock. Naofumi walks over to her and tries to calm her down, saying that this is part of all this training. She needs to push herself past this fear of this monster, and once she does, she can be way stronger than any monster that comes through those portals, way stronger than anything. And Raphtalia is terrified still, but stands up and she's shaking. Naofumi says that she wants all of this to be her choice, all her choice, but she needs to face it now. Choose. Does she want to fight the monster that could or could not have killed her parents, or at least looks like it? Or will she back down now and be afraid for the rest of her life? Raphtalia grips her sword tightly and immediately charges at the monster. Naofumi steps in front of her, gut punching the monster as she slices at its head, and immediately the monster is dead. Quick and effective, Naofumi realized that a frontal attack would probably have gotten Raphtalia killed, so he had to step in a little bit. But with all that said and done, Raphtalia, who was covered in blood, but the blood of the dog that looked so similar to the one that killed her parents, she's now free of those demons, at least partially. She now knows that she's strong enough, that she can be strong enough, and by the side of Naofumi, she can make a difference. She begs Naofumi to never, ever leave her side, and that she wants to fight with him forever. And Naofumi smiles, saying that they can get this slave crest off, that she can fight with him by her own means if she wants, and she shakes her head, saying that that's not a problem, that she doesn't care, that she never felt like a slave, that he's the one that saved her. Naofumi's happy to hear this, and even says that she does get an XP bonus when she has that slave crest on, so it is for the best that she has it on. He kind of laughs and carries her out of the cave. They sell all their ores and stuff they got, which is pretty beneficial, but what's the most beneficial is the XP they gained. They gained a good bit of XP from killing that monster, gaining a couple levels from it actually, and throughout this entire time, they continue their training, leveling up and various other things, and about 2 weeks out before the wave, his special brass knuckles or his special equipment then arrives. It seems like Erhard outdone himself. They're very, very small brass knuckles that form to his hand nicely, but when he punches, they don't hurt him very much at all. Actually, it doesn't hurt at all entirely. It has some padding around the fingers, and Erhard explains that there was some magic done to it so that it wouldn't hurt his fingers at all, and that it can develop and change as he goes along in terms of if he gains more strength in his hands or anything like that. And it's the same thing for his legs and his shin guards that he has. These metal shin guards that are very flexible but pack a punch when landed correctly, and he assumes Naofumi, as the martial artist he is, he'll be able to land it pretty correctly. Naofumi smiles and thanks him, and even gives him some extra money, and Erhard says that he appreciates the gesture, but he doesn't need it, not quite right now, to not worry about it and worry about himself, especially with only 2 weeks before the next wave. Naofumi thanks him, and Raphtalia and him head off. And during their training though, someone actually approaches him. In the mid of night, some odd creature, figure of some sorts, begins to circle them, and Naofumi can sense it, can look straight at the creature's whereabouts, and knows exactly where the person is. This person immediately charges forward at Naofumi, and Naofumi stands guard, but she doesn't attack. She just stands there in excitement to see this person. She says that she heard about him, that she's heard of this person that is the legendary hero, but he has no weapon, and that she finds it so awesome, and that it doesn't matter if he doesn't have a weapon, he can still fight, and he can still hurt people and help people, and he's confused. Does he have a fangirl in this world? How does that even make sense? He's not like even in MMA and UFC he was that popular, but why the heck does they have a fangirl now? Raphtalia is confused as well, and even asks who this girl is, and she says that she's sorry, she hasn't even introduced herself. She says that her name is Ellie, and that she's an adventurer as well, but she's not very good at adventuring, she's kind of by herself, and that she only knows how to heal people. That's all she's good for. She shows her staff and her wand thing, and she begins explaining that that's all she's been able to do throughout all her adventures, and, well, every team that she goes with, they seem to, well, leave her in the dust, and that she can't level up as easy as everybody else. It doesn't work, it doesn't help her. And Naofumi is hesitant, very hesitant. He literally got jumped by robbers and bandits because they said they wanted to be part of his team. But now this random girl is saying that she wants to be part of it. And Raphtalia is questioning her as well, but she is a better, well, sense of judgment than Naofumi. Eventually, Raphtalia says that they should give her a chance. A healer would be really good for their party, and she begins nodding excessively, saying that she promises to do her best, and Naofumi just shakes his head and laughs. Okay, Ellie, we'll give you a shot. Why not? She begins to get excited and hugs Naofumi, But Raftalia puts her sword in front of him before, well, she can even hug him fully, and says to back off. And she nervously backs up and apologizes. Naofumi just laughs and says that they still have training to do, and well, he'll add her to the party. So he does just that, but currently she doesn't have a slave crest, and Raftalia even brings it up, saying that if she really wants to be loyal, then maybe she should get a slave crest. She's super hesitant about this, saying that a slave crest, like, she can't be a slave, that she's not a slave. But Naofumi says that that's a good idea. This would be a test of loyalty. Raftalia had the choice to get her slave crest off, but she decided she didn't want it off. So it's her choice though. Ellie then is kind of shaken by this, but her determination shows in her face and says that she'll get the slave crest and she'll prove to Naofumi and Raftalia that she could be useful, that she'll be helpful. And Naofumi smiles and says that they'll get that done right now. So they head to the slave market once again, getting the slave crest on her, which costs a little bit of silver, but not too much. After all that is said and done though, the training finally begins, and Ellie begins to see some pretty good growth. Obviously, with Naofumi and Raftalia, two very capable fighters, it's blatantly obvious that she's going to be of a lot of help. The only thing that really sucks is that she's kind of, well, you could say a weakness. They have to protect her pretty heavily, but she is also a strength at the same time, keeping them more or less healed, and their stamina seems to be regenerating at a faster rate. They're not getting tired very much anymore, so this allows them for even more effective training sessions. So it's like a double-edged sword. She can boost them in strength and regeneration and stamina, but she is weak on her own, so she needs protection. And luckily, Naofumi has the means of doing this. They're both really strong, so of course they can protect her, and they're going to make sure that they come up with certain battle formations to make it so that she won't get hurt ever. She also begins to learn a new ability, an ability that is kind of like a guardian angel ability that allows her to fly over or fly away from certain areas of, well, if a monster is there, she can fly to Raftalia, and vice versa. If there's a monster near Raftalia that's going to strike her, she can fly toward Naofumi. It's very beneficial, and it seems to only work with people in her party, in which she even brings that up, saying that it seems when she looks at other people, it's not like she can just fly over to them. But with all that said, 2 weeks then pass, and the first wave of catastrophe is upon them. With all of them more or less at around a level of 20 to 25, they feel pretty prepared. Naofumi is actually probably a slightly higher level than Raftalia, especially with the fact that he can fight on his own. And with his new brass knuckles, luckily it doesn't restrict his strength, it actually boosts it. Instead of a 2x multiplier, it's a 2.5x multiplier in all his stats, giving him insane amounts of strength, but obviously this is very restricted. His hand-to-hand and close-range combat is going to be restricted, especially when there's people that are further distances and stuff like that, and that would be kind of a struggle if there's flying people or flying monsters or monsters that won't get close enough for him to strike. In which he does have trouble with this when this first wave attacks and he begins fighting for the people of Loot. They're able to easily defend it off, but the Hornets are a little bit of a struggle. He's able to grab them and pin them to the ground with his jujitsu pretty easily when they get closer, but it is a bit of a struggle when they're flying above him and other things like that. But luckily, this is gonna go pretty easily. Even all the people in the village are being healed and replenished by Ellie. Ellie is very effective, and she learns that even when she starts healing people and stuff like that, she can actually gain XP on top of that. So Ellie will be able to gain more and more XP as she heals more and more people. Which Naofumi finds this very beneficial because she's going to be doing that most of the time, if not all of the time. But it would be nice to have somebody to pair up with Ellie, maybe a monster of some sort, or maybe even another team member that can protect her when they're not there. And that's their sole purpose, is to more or less just protect Ellie the best they possibly can. But with all that said and done, the monsters are exterminated very quickly at the village of Lutz, or, well, the place of Lutz, and they easily defeat all of them, waiting for the monster or the main boss to be defeated. Eventually, that main boss is defeated, and the skies begin to clear up. Naofumi congratulates both of them, saying they did a very good job, and actually this was a good way of leveling in itself, bringing Naofumi to about a level of 27, Raphtalia to a level of about 24, and Ellie to about a level of 18. Luckily, this is a pretty good starting point for all of them. Ellie, who doesn't really level up fast by any means at all, is leveling up relatively quickly. Raphtalia has been leveling up very quickly as well, and they've been doing very inefficient training, you could say. They're fighting monsters, but not monsters that are higher level than them. If they continued fighting a monster that was like that dog they fought, who was a high level, and they fought them all the time, their levels would grow exponentially, especially with the fact that they have the slave crest on and they give a massive boost. But there's a lot more Naofumi doesn't know. He's not big on video games. Yes, he did play them in his off time, but who doesn't when you're actually like hooked up on work all the time? So of course he's gonna play some video games, but he's not super in depth with all of it. He doesn't know anything else that his powers are part of, so that's one thing he really wants to learn. Is there anything else as the martial arts hero of some sorts, is what he deems himself as, or the unarmed hero? He believes that maybe there is more to his powers. Maybe there is a substitute for long range. Maybe there's certain weapons that he can get, or like his brass knuckles, that will experience him to have more long range attacks, maybe stronger close range attacks, and various other things like that. But with all that said, that's all hypothetical and nothing he knows for sure. Luckily, with all that time, he can basically just go over and think about it during this state dinner that he's more or less forced to go to. Ellie and Raphtalia are enjoying it heavily, saying that they love the food and it tastes great. Naofumi says that he's not big on eating this amazing food. He's never been on or off a diet, frankly. So he says that he's not really big on the cake and the steak and all that. He likes it, he enjoys it, but he doesn't really feel that it's his thing, at least not at the moment. He says he'll try a couple things, but that's about it. They say that they run over with more food and basically have him try this and that and this and that. And now Fumi just smiles and says that he's fine now, he's not really hungry. He begins laughing and so do they, but there's something looming in the distance. It's Motoyasu, the spirit hero, is being talked to by Mine. It seems like Mine has something to say about the two people that are in Naofumi's party, and Motoyasu runs over, throwing his glove on the ground, saying that he's going to fight Naofumi to free his slaves. And Naofumi finds this ridiculous, that they are in his party by choice. Ellie wasn't even a slave in the first place, and she nods, saying that she asked to join his party in the first place as well, and got the slave crest as a sign of loyalty. And Raphtalia says the same thing, that Naofumi offered to get rid of the slave crest, but she refused, saying that it was like a sign of loyalty to Naofumi. And Motoyasu and Mine and everybody there isn't believing it. They say that there's no way someone like him would do that, but he's confused. What do you mean, someone like me? I don't get it. What do you have against me? They begin saying that in his place was supposed to be the shield hero, and he acts just like him, just like the devil of the shield. And he's confused by this, shocked by this, that they so openly talked about it. He's not the shield hero, but he was the replacement for one? He's confused, and he swore that maybe he was just not was summoned by accident. Maybe he wasn't supposed to be here, but he stands up and grabs the glove and smacks Motoyasu in the face. I accept your challenge, but this is gonna go really bad for you. I just want you to know that. The duel is then upon them. Naofumi stands in front of Motoyasu to see that he's almost twice his level, and Naofumi smirks slightly, saying that he really wishes he could have had effective training the entire time. Maybe he would have been as high as Motoyasu. Motoyasu says that it's still not too late to back down and just free his slaves. And Naofumi says that he's fought people far bigger, far stronger, and a lot more, threatening than him. Motoyasu takes this as, a threat, saying that, what, you think you're just gonna beat me with ease? It doesn't matter what our levels are. I'll beat you. Trust me. Motoyasu doesn't understand that yes, Naofumi may be a lower level, and yes, he might be quote-unquote less powerful, but Naofumi has technique, has all this power beyond just a level. It doesn't necessarily matter. Naofumi knows various martial arts, and this was gonna go really, really bad, really fast. Naofumi watches as Motoyasu charges in just like an idiot, and at such a slow speed. Naofumi slips under it and immediately punches him in the stomach, ripping off part of his armor, then grabbing his arm that he's holding the spear with, flipping him on his back, immediately cranking his arm. Naofumi has him in the quickest armbar he could possibly think of. Motoyasu is slow, not good with hand-to-hand combat. He's just relying on his spear. But on the other hand, Naofumi is relying on everything. His body, his mind, his hands, feet, shins, anything he can think of. He immediately gets Motoyasu in this armbar, and Motoyasu cannot do a thing. His spear is basically on the hand that is completely occupied, and Motoyasu can't do absolutely anything. Naofumi tells him to give up, or he'll break the arm, and Motoyasu says, don't you dare. So, Naofumi dares, breaking his arm and then getting up. I told you, do you want to yield? And Motoyasu is screaming in pain, screaming that he broke his arm. But as this occurs, a blast of magic hits Naofumi in the back and sends him flying. He's able to regain himself luckily, but he looks to see one broken arm on Motoyasu, but he's standing still, using his ultimate move, ready to blast Naofumi out of this ring. Naofumi's pissed. He knows someone, whoever it was, just interfered with their battle, but he doesn't care. He still will stand his ground and make sure that this blast doesn't hit him. Naofumi stands his ground, plants one foot in front of him, and goes to clash with the blast. He punches the blast, and out of nowhere, the blast begins to get pushed back. Naofumi's hand begins to seemingly absorb whatever power that is coming toward him, and he can feel it. He begins to smooth his arm around the blast. This lightning bolt begins to travel up his arm, and he swiftly counters it, throwing it to the side. But he looks at his hand and places it on his chest, and it begins to absorb into himself. He looks to see that his level just went up by 3 levels immediately, just like that. Whatever power this guy just sent at him was very strong, but he was able to use it for his own advantage. It seems like Naofumi can absorb attacks, powerful attacks, and, well, gain levels from it. He just gained that much experience from absorbing an attack from somebody twice his level. Naofumi, now at a level of 30 to 31, stands in front of Motoyasu, and Motoyasu is shocked to see this. He just blocked his biggest attack. Naofumi immediately in front of him again begins his onslaught, landing rights and lefts, landing gut punches, leg kicks, immediately kicking him in the head and then dropping him to the ground. It's over, Motoyasu. You don't understand. These people want to be around me, want to be in my party. It's that simple. Why can't you get that through your head? Motoyasu says that slavery is wrong, and Naofumi agrees that it is wrong if it's not by choice. It's by choice, Motoyasu, and in this world, slavery is, for one, legal, and also they've told you multiple times that they willingly did this. So what's your problem? They get more XP, they have benefit more from this. They can fight better, they're stronger. It's that simple. Motoyasu is shocked to hear this, and Naofumi says that if he doesn't yield, he's gonna have to knock him out. And Motoyasu says that he won't yield to this. He refuses, but as he says this, Naofumi kicks him in the face, and you can hear the crowd go ooh and ah, and basically saying that looked like it hurt. Motoyasu was out cold with a broken arm and down for the count. Naofumi leaves and begins to wonder that he was still able to get XP, even though they were near the other heroes. This ability must work differently. It must be completely different. He looks to see that maybe it affected Motoyasu's levels, and he sees that it did. It seems that if someone is stronger than him, or maybe higher level, maybe a monster, a person, anything, he can sap the levels out, or XP, to a certain extent. It didn't affect Motoyasu too much because leveling obviously scales, so he only lost about half a level, but Naofumi gained 3 levels from it. This is interesting, something he's going to have to keep in mind, and something he'll have to use if the heroes want to, well, play unfair. Naofumi goes to leave, saying that it's time for them to go, that they have some things to attend to, that they have a lot of work to do. But Ren and Itsuki actually stop them, and they apologize, saying that they saw what Mine did, and all the other noblemen are told to basically shut up about it. And he says that it's fine, that he wasn't going to win with all the outside help in the world. It wouldn't have mattered. And Naofumi just begins to walk away, and Ren even asks how he got that strong, and Naofumi even shrugs. You guys are stronger than me, at least by level. I'm this strong because I know all these martial arts. It's been part of me for a while now. That's where I came from, remember? I was a martial artist. So, I will say, this definitely is helping me in the long run. They all, well, at least Ren and Itsuki understand now, that there's more to this world than just that. Of course, they still see it as a video game, but they do think about maybe they should expand their arsenal. Maybe learning how to use a bow and learning how to use a sword is not just it. Maybe they should learn other things. How to properly use certain combos, stances, certain weaknesses that they can exploit by getting inside or being on the outside of a monster based on their reach and range. They think about all this. That's what martial arts is for, and that's what it thrives on, and that's what Naofumi just saw, using the weakness of someone else to your own advantage. And with all that said, Naofumi is finally gone. He leaves with his party, and they're pretty impressed. They're saying that whatever move that he did to gain those 3 levels was really awesome, and he says that he really doesn't even know what he did. It looked like he just tried to parry it in a way, and that's what he thought he was going to be able to do, but it was more like he absorbed it. But he didn't even absorb the entire blast. If he did, he might have gotten even stronger from it. And Naofumi says that it doesn't even seem like it's temporary either. All his punches do so much damage, and this leveling that he got extra is permanent. And obviously Raphtalia and Ellie are shocked to hear this, and they say that this is great, and maybe they can take advantage of this. Maybe this will be the answer to them growing faster and faster, or at least Naofumi growing faster and faster. He nods and agrees, but says that they should do one thing at a time, in which that brings them to the slave market. And Raphtalia and Ellie obviously are confused by what they're doing there, and he says that he got some extra money, so he thought that maybe they can get one more, maybe a monster to help Ellie and protect her. She begins to kind of blush and say that Naofumi is really thinking about protecting her, and Naofumi kind of laughs and just says that she can't fight for herself, so it kind of needs to be done. Raphtalia kind of laughs at her, saying that she can't fight for herself, but Naofumi tells them to stop messing around, and it leads them to buying a gacha egg, or a gacha monster egg, which later on hatches into a Flolio. Eventually, Naofumi names it Philo, which Raphtalia and Ellie think that it's very not creative at all, but Naofumi says that, you know, he can name it whatever he wants. With all that done, though, they finally begin to progress a little bit, visiting Loot Village and other things like that, and seeing the high growing of the Flolio. It seems like the Flolio is growing faster because she's in a hero's party, which is very interesting. Even Naofumi is kind of confused by this and looks through all his skills. Maybe he has a growing skill as well or something. He finds that he kind of does. It's in a way based on monsters, but it's based on the connection he has with a monster. But it's nothing crazy, it's just like a 25% boost in speed of growing, but it must also have to do with him being a legendary hero technically. So that's why the Flolio is growing so fast, eventually growing to be a full-size Flolio. And then he obviously tries out, you know, riding Philo and other things like that, and this then leads to Motoyasu and Mine visiting Loot Village. Naofumi obviously tells them to just bug off. There's no way they're gonna let them just run up this a horrible tax without knowing how much these people pay or what are the money limitations on this place, and that they have no right to do that. And Mind says that they do. It's a royal decree. And Naofumi calls that ridiculous and that he'll fight for it again if Motoyasu wants. But he kind of laughs and says, oh wait, but he still has a partially broken arm. My bad. Mind is pissed to hear this, but as she's about to do something, someone shows up in front of her. It seems like a shadow from the queen, delivers a message to Mind, basically saying that she cannot take over this place and that she should be treating this unarmed hero or the martial arts hero properly. Mind is pissed to hear this and goes to basically say that they're going to challenge him to a race, but Motoyasu says that he's really not even up for it, that he's hurt and that he can't really go for that. And Naofumi says that that's ridiculous anyways, to just get out of here and leave it at that before they embarrass themselves even more. Eventually Motoyasu leaves and so does Mind, but Mind says that this isn't over and that she'll make sure that he pays. Which Naofumi is shocked to hear this, like, what do you have against me? Like, he hasn't done anything, but obviously in her little sick mind, she thinks that. But with all that said, Philo hears this and is pretty mad and kicks the living hell out of Motoyasu, sending him flying. And Mind is insane by that and is going crazy and saying that why would the Filolio do that? But Naofumi doesn't have an answer. He just starts laughing more and more, actually thanking Philo for the comically funny kick. And with all that done, obviously they have to head off and do some things, eventually leading to Philo growing in size. Philo's this huge bird now, and Naofumi's shocked to see this, and well, it must have something to do with him being a legendary hero. That's the conclusion he makes eventually, and this leads them to just sleeping for the night. Waking up, Naofumi hears the screams of Raftalia and Ellie, and they say that, who is that? Wait, how'd she get there? And Naofumi is shocked and is confused, seeing a little girl laying on his leg, and he gets up immediately, and she's confused as well, asking why Master Naofumi is acting so weird. And he realizes that this person is Philo somehow. He throws a blanket over her because she's kind of not wearing clothes, but throws a blanket over her, and this then leads them to Erhard, trying to find a dressmaker or something that can help them out. Erhard actually does say that he has magical thread and that it was a special order, knowing that Naofumi would probably have or need something of that ballpark. So luckily he gets it pretty early, leading him to that dressmaker, and they make Philo a nice dress, the beautiful same dress as normal. This then leads them to take a wagon that they got from Loot Village and have Philo and obviously the rest of them head off on a small journey to see other villages. This leads them to actually meeting a wealthy trader who they help obviously, but a group of bandits attack their wagon, in which they defeat very easily, and they basically say that they're gonna say all this stuff about Naofumi, but Naofumi threatens them, most likely saying, or basically saying, that Philo's going to eat their heads off. This then leads them to obviously forking over a bunch of loot, and Philo doesn't eat them, but they swear that they're not going to say a word. So Naofumi drops the man off, the trader, and learns some new skills and actually gains some new contacts. This then leads them to actually, instead of heading into the mines like how they did initially, was to head over to actually deliver a herbicide. Luckily they were able to do this pretty quickly, so they didn't have to worry too much about other things going on. So they immediately head off to go help this village out, and when Naofumi arrives, it seems like it's just starting to become a monstrous plant, and he immediately goes to the village to take action. He begins talking to them, asking what's happening, and they just explain everything that happened, that the spear hero ended their famine but sprouted these plants that started attacking the villagers. So Naofumi, without another word with the rest of his party, heads off and begins trying to cure this plant or shut it down, in which they're actually able to do. Since they're there a slightly more early, it actually helps them in this instance, with Ellie especially. The herbicide alone won't be able to affect it, but it seems that Ellie's power will be very beneficial, Using her power and her magic, it seems like Ellie's able to, you could say, slow down the growth of this monstrous plant while the herbicide takes effect. Naofumi apologizes and says that he'll make sure to give her a gift or some special food that she likes, because he knows that it's going to be very draining to hold this plant in place, or at least stunt the growth in the meantime while the herbicide takes effect. She says that it's fine and that she's just happy to feel useful, and Naofumi nods, saying that she's definitely useful. This makes her happy, and she kind of jumps for joy and loses focus for a second, but is able to gain it back and kind of smiles nervously. This obviously eventually leads to the herbicide killing the plants. Luckily, when Naofumi administrated it, it did boost the strength a slight bit, not by a lot, but definitely by a little bit, and with Ellie's magic, it definitely made it more potent and stopped the plant from growing very much anymore. Unfortunately, Naofumi explains that he doesn't really have a way to help them in their food instance, but he could try and help with just regular seeds, and that's the best he can possibly do. Ellie says that she has some experience in farming and that she can make sure that the land is fertile enough, and Naofumi thanks her for that, and they all help out to basically set up a nice farm for them. But that's all they can really do, and Naofumi explains that they're just gonna need to find another way to get food in the meantime while everything's growing, and then they should become pretty self-sufficient. They thank him and say that, well, they don't know what to call him. Do they call him Naofumi? Do they call him the unarmed hero? What do they call him? And he says that Naofumi is just fine. He really doesn't mind. Or they can call him the martial arts hero. That sounds cooler. And they agree, saying that the martial arts hero sounds way cooler than like the unarmed hero. And he kind of laughs about this and says that he needs to head off, in which he does. He actually has another job, and that's to actually deliver more merchandise to a hot springs village. And when they arrive, they actually decide to stay the night, in which Naofumi spends time with Philo, Raphtalia, and Ellie, but mostly Philo. It's kind of funny, they get split up into different hot springs, and Raphtalia and Ellie are together and Philo is with Naofumi, and they're both frustrated, saying that they wanted to be with Naofumi, and they kind of argue over it for a little bit. After all that's said and done though, they all head to bed, but Philo, Raphtalia, and Ellie actually want to go find something. Find this, well, boar or these eggs that they've heard about, but leads them to finding a boar, and it attacks them, in which they eventually just kill the boar and bring it back to Naofumi as the gift. And Naofumi is pretty impressed that the boar is very interesting, and he may be able to get something out of it. He eventually sells it, but obviously keeps some of it, keeps the teeth and also some other of its claws or hooves. So he just absorbs those into his gem to see that maybe he can get the strength, or maybe he can get a special ability out of it. But unluckily enough, he didn't really get much from it. It seems to help a little bit, and maybe it's on the pathway of getting to another martial arts type of power, but currently there's not much ahead of him. But luckily they got the money, so that's a plus at least. After this though, Naofumi learns of this mysterious disease. It seems like there's a disease spreading through a village, and when he arrives and goes to investigate it, he finds out why the disease is there. But he does see all of these people suffering, hurting, dying because of this disease, and it definitely frustrates him, pisses him off to the point where he says that he'll handle it. He'll dispose of this whatever so-called dragon that is rotting away, and he'll handle everything as quick as possible. Naofumi and his team immediately go up, but when they're on the way up, Naofumi begins to sense something. This rage within someone, this power. It seems like whatever's up here isn't quite dead. When they arrive, they go to basically chop up the monster, but Naofumi tells them to back up, that this monster isn't dead. And they're confused. How could this dragon not be dead? But as they think that, and as they begin to talk about it, the dragon begins to stand. It's a zombified dragon, ready for revenge. It wants revenge on Ren, the sword hero that killed him, but this other hero and his party will do just as well. Raphtalia charges in and slices at the dragon's wing and cuts it partially, but can't really get through the skin of it, and Ellie can't really do anything else other than just heal them. Philo is mad, doesn't like, and she does not like dragons. She goes into her full state, or her more or less Philolio Queen state, and charges at the dragon, kicking it a bunch of times, but then the dragon swallows her whole. Naofumi and his eyes grow wide, and he is pissed. His aura begins to erupt. It's like he's never felt anger like this before, but this is different. He's mad. He is so furious at seeing his party member get killed. This aura, it's this red aura, surrounds him, and his fists begin to grow in size. Not physically though. It's the aura around him that makes his fists huge. It seems like this aura is acting out of himself. It's growing his body. It's like he's turning giant, bigger, and it's something he can control. This rage within him, it's boiling over. He's now larger than he honestly can possibly think of. 8, 9, maybe even 10 feet tall. Naofumi may be at the bottom, but the aura is at the top. The aura is 10 feet above him, and he begins to lay in to the dragon, punch after punch, grabbing the dragon by the neck and slamming him down in an instant, punching his stomach, telling him to give back Philo right now. Naofumi has a boost of strength that is far more than he's ever seen. His normal 2.5 times is nothing compared to this. It's not even able to be comprehended. It seems like this strength is coming from a core anger that he never knew he had. It's this bloodlust. This is why he loved fighting in the first place. He loved the act of punching somebody in the face. He loved the act of making people bleed, but he would always repress it. He always had to. That love for making people bleed would lead to you hitting people illegally, or maybe grappling them and hurting them illegally as well. But Naofumi doesn't have to hold back anymore. He begins laying into the dragon over and over and over again, leading to the dragon spitting up Philo, and again he punches the dragon in the face and then begins to obliterate the dragon. Whatever Naofumi just did, his power was off the charts. His level seemed to be non-existent, like it didn't even matter. And Naofumi collapses to the ground after the dragon is put to rest once again. They're all shocked to see this, and Rautalia tells Ellie that they need to start the process of chopping him up and putting him away right now, because if he reawakens, that's gonna be a problem. And Naofumi is just out cold on the ground. Philo crawls next to him and gets him in the wagon, and eventually they drag him off to another place. Well, the same village, but they start getting on the road, knowing that they have to head off once again. This, though, will lead to them stopping. And Naofumi begins to get up and begins to question what happened, and Philo hands him a gem, and they all stand around him and they apologize that they weren't able to help, and that Philo says that this gem hopefully will make him feel better. And he's confused and says that if it's like a gift, right? And they all nod, and he puts it within his gem on his chest, realizing that this gem shard was part of the dragon he just fought. This exponentially boosts his power. It seems like it unlocked multiple versions of his strength and shows whatever he was or just did. And Philo and Rautalia and Ellie explain actually what happened. It's as if this aura erupted around him. It seemed like it was a bigger version of himself. It was just scaling to the monster he was fighting. And maybe the combination of all the other things he has absorbed kind of contributed to it, making him a bigger version of himself, and was able to fight with some monster that was bigger than him. And Naofumi is shocked to hear this, and he asks what caused him to do this, and they're confused, thinking that Naofumi would have known that, but he doesn't. He doesn't remember anything. He remembers walking up the hill, and that was it. Nothing else. And they explained that Philo got swallowed by the dragon, and he went haywire. And Naofumi shakes his head and says that he promises to never let her get hurt like that ever again. And Philo says that it's fine, that it was her fault that she got hurt. She got mad and tried to do it on her own. And Naofumi shakes his head again and says that that's his job, is to help them and make sure they are safe all the time. But they disagree. They say they're a party, and that if they would be willing to sacrifice their own life to save Master Naofumi's. And when this is said, Naofumi feels something in his chest, happiness. He's happy to hear this, happy to hear that he has people like them willing to sacrifice themselves if need be. Someone like that is someone you want on your team, someone that's not a liability, but someone also willing to put you over everything. Anybody would love to have something like that, and Naofumi has it. He smiles and is happy to hear this, leading him to ask if anybody else got hurt. And they say no, that on the contrary, they got a good amount of levels out of him defeating the dragon. It seems like since they all had a quote-unquote helping hand in defeating it, they got tons of XP from it as well. Naofumi is actually shocked to hear this and checks his level, seeing that he's at a level of 37 and that Raftalia is at a level of 32 and that Philo is at a level about 29 and Ellie is about a level of 25. Seeing that they're growing at really fast rates, and by no time they're going to need a class upgrade, which Naofumi is happy to hear and know about. This though, this conversation will end pretty quickly when Naofumi spots someone in a field. He sees this little girl playing with a bunch of Philolials, and Philo runs over, actually greeting the girl, saying that, or asking if she wants to be friends. And Melty quickly befriends Philo, and they basically ask Naofumi if they could accompany her to the capital. Naofumi smiles and says that would be no problem at all, and that he wouldn't mind tagging her along, but they do have a couple stops to go to if that's fine with her. Melty says that's completely fine, so that's what they do. They stop by at a couple places and then eventually arrive at the capital. When they arrive at the capital, Naofumi is attacked by the spear hero once again. Naofumi quickly dodges and is able to parry, but asks why is he attacking him? What's the point? What is he doing? And the spear hero says that he heard about another slave in his party, that little girl right there. How could he do that? That is horrible. Mine, who's standing there next to him, is basically laughing at Naofumi. The struggle that Naofumi is going through is all because of her, because of the king's freaking daughter. Why is royalty out to get him that bad? Naofumi stands his ground and tells Motoyasu to basically back down. If he doesn't back down, he'll break both of his arms this time. Naofumi is serious. He's mad now. He's frustrated with all these people. They're slowing his progress down, and the fact that they're treating him like this. Motoyasu goes to strike once again, but royal guards and someone else stands next to him, telling them to stop. Melty tugs on Naofumi's shirt and says that he apologizes for her sister's actions and also the spear hero's actions. Melty begins to explain that she's the second princess, the heir apparent to the queen. And Naofumi is shocked to hear this. Another person of royalty? Is she good? Can I really trust her if she's royalty? Naofumi's not sure. And, well, you'll have to wait to see if he does in the next one. I hope y'all enjoyed part 1 of What If Naofumi Was the Legendary Martial Arts Hero. And if you did, make sure to leave a like, sub, comment down below, and just leave any suggestions you have for this what if, or maybe even future what ifs. Yeah, that's about it. Like I've said before, I have the Beast Hero art being done currently. I'm not sure when it's going to be done. I'm going to reach out to my artist and ask when it's going to be done. So I'll have that definitely coming very soon. I have part 1 of this, obviously, if you're watching it right now. And yeah, I'll have some things in progress and being done very soon. Like I said, hope all y'all enjoy, and hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.